biggest purveyor of propaganda is probably Sam Altman. Altman will declare AGI based on some new definition that wasn't actually the original definition of AGI.
The demand for the average employee is going down. As AI gets better and better and more capable, the average employee is going to have a harder time finding a job, and the very best sales leader, the very best marketing leader, the very best product person will have a great time.
You can sense almost a desperation of franticness from some of those folks.
If you're listening there and you're about to do a red eye, take 3 drinks, 3 stiff drinks, and go to sleep when you get on the plane.
Don't eat the food on the plane, just go to bed. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Top Line Podcast. It's Sam Jacobs, your co-host. I am the CEO Pavilion. I'm joined by Asad Zaman, the CEO of STA, and AJ Bruner, the CEO of QuotaPath. Today, we're going to be talking about a number of incredible things, including what's the difference between AGI and superintelligence and what impact will it have on all of our businesses. The new grind score ranking for companies that are measuring how hard they're grinding on the path to some kind of 996 idea about startups working 9 to 9, 6 days a week. Clay raised $100 million at a $3.1 billion valuation. Would the three of us invest? And right off the press, hot off the press, Clary and SalesLoft just announced that they're merging. And Asad called that a couple episodes ago, and we're really excited for the soothsayer, Nostrazaman. Nostrazaman is his name, and he is the man that can predict the future. Welcome to Top Line episode 122. Gents, how are you? Asad, how are you?
I am good. I'm excited for today's discussion, and I'm also very interested to see what plays out with this M&A that's happening in the space.
Yeah, me too. AJ, things going well?
I'm fantastic, Sam. I had been working on something for 18 months, and I know you both know a little bit about it, and I can't announce it yet, but I will be. And it got off my plate, so to speak, this week, but that's not why I'm so happy right now, excited. My airplane that I fly has been down in maintenance for 2 years because of a fuel leak. And guess who got to fly it yesterday? I did.
Where'd you go?
I didn't go anywhere. I took off, I did a little circuit, and I landed, and I did that 4 times, and I did that with an instructor. And
did you have a parachute on? Like, because if you're going up in a plane that's been in maintenance for 2 years, what protection do you keep?
I mean, the wings were bolted on. I kicked the tires a couple times, and I'm like, the engine started up like they had been started last. I know what I'm doing. No, here's the thing. I really felt super discombobulated being in my airplane, and so I had an instructor, and I'm going to have that instructor for 10 more hours to learn how to fly this airplane again.
That's so smart. That's the right way to do it.
Yeah,
good for you.
And so I'm excited. We're coming off of the week of our offsite that we were all together for the full week, and I feel refreshed. I feel ready to go. Sam, have you slept? When was the last time you went to sleep, Sam?
I slept. I just landed a couple hours ago from my red eye from New York to Barcelona, and I had this idea that I executed perfectly, which is before I got on the plane, I had 3 drinks. And then when I got on the plane, from the minute I got on the plane, I just went to sleep. And I slept from 9:30 to the equivalent of, I guess it would be like 5 a.m., 5:30 a.m. And so, it wasn't perfect sleep and my back hurt, but generally speaking, it was pretty good. When the flight lands at 11:55 a.m. Spanish time, that's usually pretty good because it's kind of like sleeping in. You just have to go to bed as soon as you get on the plane. Go to bed as soon as you get on the plane.
Everyone has their secrets. If you're listening there and you're about to do a red eye, take 3 drinks, 3 stiff drinks, and go to sleep when you get on the plane.
Yeah, you don't.
Health advice.
The rookie move is eating. No matter what class you're flying, is like eating a dinner at like the equivalent of 11 p.m. Like, don't eat the food on the plane. Just go to bed, and you'll be way better. You won't be perfect, but you'll be way better. AJ, one question.
I find it interesting how much people wait for airplane food. Like, you take off and they're just waiting. But it's like the worst food ever usually.
It's very hard to say no to because you feel like, especially if you're in
paid for
business class, you're like, well, I'm supposed to get this, and they're offering me an ice cream sundae, and maybe I should take the ice cream sundae. And I have a big belly after 3 weeks in the US, that I can tell you. So I'm going to be trying to lose it.
Instead, you're like, can I just have 5 more eye masks? I'm just going to put them all on top of my face.
Fine.
But I was very happy to get back to my baby girl, and she was shaking a rattle today, and she was sitting up, and
She's wearing shoes. She's wearing shoes, everyone,
she,
for the
she
first
doesn't
time
know
ever.
why though. She doesn't know why. We put
Three
them on
weeks
her.
away, like, are there at that stage there's so much change happening? Like, what's the change 3 weeks in?
The change is her face is rounder, like she's fuller, she weighs more, and there's just more cognition every time you see her. So she can now take the pacifier out of her mouth and put it back in her mouth. So she like understands the relationship
Yeah.
between those. I mean, she's not, I don't know where Einstein was in
She's
his development.
Einstein. She's
Yeah,
definitely Einstein.
5.5 months, but I feel like she's quite bright. All right, let's get into the docket. We've got a lot to discuss. Asad, kick us off.
Okay, so we're going to start by discussing AGI and superintelligence. You can't look left or right now without somebody talking about it. So we're going to spend some time there. And it kind of made sense. 5 years ago, AI was something a bunch of nerds in the fringe of our ecosystem were wrestling with. They couldn't even raise venture. Some of them had to get donations to be able to do their research. And then after the ChatGPT moment, the world's just quite different now. Since ChatGPT is launched, we've spent 820 billion on AI capex. For context, that is almost the same as what the US spends on its military every single year to keep itself and its allies safe. Venture capitalists have invested 226 billion across 2100 startups. Almost every revenue growth milestone or record has been broken. Fastest to a million, fastest to 10 million, fastest to 100 million, 500 million, a billion, 5 billion, 10 billion. All those records have been broken in the last year and a half by AI companies. ChatGPT is about to hit 700 million active users. That's 4x of what they had last weekly active users, 4x of what they had last year. And it made sense why there's so much momentum, because from some angles, AI is getting much better. Early on, it was novel, right? Like you could write a poem, but a bad one. Now, the O3 model is literally the 175th best competitive coder in the world. It's not perfect, but that's not nothing either. And so this has made it so that a lot of people are talking about what does the future look like. And you hear a lot of conversations around AGI. You're starting to hear conversations about superintelligence. But the interesting thing about those two words is that the word intelligence doesn't have a consensus definition. And so, obviously, by default, these two words don't have consensus definitions. Altman thinks AGI will be like having an army of PhDs at your disposal. Musk thinks it's going to be smarter than the smartest human on earth. And then Satya says this is all nonsense. Till the productivity of the earth increases by 10%, we do not have it. And so let's start there, Sam, since there are no definitions and the ones no agreed upon definitions and the ones we're getting up by these technologists. How do you, as a commercially minded operator, how do you think about these
And
concepts?
Sam,
What
how do you feel about AGI being smarter than your daughter? That's what Asta just said. Smarter than the
Well,
smartest human being on earth.
I guess a couple. I have a couple reactions. I did some research. There actually some of the distinction is actually that super intelligence. Some people say super intelligence is in a hierarchy, is in a tier above AGI. That AGI is basically as smart as the smartest human, and super intelligence is, capable of learning and improving itself at an increasing rate, thus becoming, the singularity and becoming the all-knowing sentient intelligence. I think we're very far from both of those things. I do think that whether I think the biggest provider and purveyor of propaganda is probably Sam Altman. I think Elon's actually a little bit more measured in terms of how he describes these things. I could be wrong, and so I think Altman will declare AGI based on some new definition that wasn't actually the original definition of AGI. I don't think we're very close to it. I think saying that O3 is the 170 something best computer coder doesn't really answer the question that you and I were talking about on the phone yesterday, Asid, which is, would you hire, putting all other things aside, would you hire O3 to completely replace a human being without oversight? And the answer is no way. In fact, Asad and I were saying that you'd probably fire this employee within a couple of days because they're just such sensationalist liars. And again, I think I've said a number of different times that the primary feature currently of LLMs is not the fact that they're correct, it is that they're persuasive. So they make you think that they're correct, and certainly you feel coming away doing deep research or anything with a lot of confidence once they proclaim something, but you always have to double check it. I think we're still a number of years away from any of this being actually applicable. Now that I think runs in the face of what most of the AI researchers think, and most of what OpenAI and Grok and Anthropic are probably telling us. But when I think about AGI as a stand-in when it comes to judgment that I can rely on without needing a human, overseer, a human QA orchestrator, as I'm sure we'll talk about, I don't think we're very close to that. But I do think it's an extra set of hands in a lot of meaningful ways that can extend the power of the individual. And I do think, to the point of some of the things that we're going to talk about, what I really think is that, and I don't think this particularly relates to Clarion SalesLoft because they have so many people, but I think if you're at a company sub 100 people, maybe even sub 50 people, I think that there's a really interesting opportunity to consider a reboot of your organization, of your org chart, with AI at the center of it. And I think that there's a lot of companies that actually do have an ability, because they're not so far along that they have hundreds of employees. They have an opportunity here to say, what if I want to reposition? I think you're probably doing this yourself, Asad, at STA.
Yeah.
If I want to reposition STA as an AI native executive search firm, what does that look like? How many people do we need? What are they doing? What are the things that robots or agents can now do? I think that's a very, very interesting question. And I think the answer is there is a big opportunity to rethink
You
organizational
know,
design.
what you just said, Sam, on this, it's funny. Actually, after we all met last week, I kicked off this project internally. And the question I'm having everyone answer is, what does a product, and let product is delivery for a firm like ours, what is a product that's 10 times better than the one we have today, or better, 10 times better than anything that's out there in the market? What does that just look like? Forget if we can do it or not, but what is that? Let's define that. And then let's talk about what's holding us back from being able to do it. But in having that conversation, where I got this week was executive search. If you look at that market, it's $10 billion a year in the US from a revenue perspective. No one company owns more than 10% of the market. And so when I asked people that have tried to create technology for that market, why aren't you able to raise venture? The venture capitalists don't think this market is big enough for venture outcomes. And so they aren't funding people to go and build, let's say, AI agents that are specific for an executive search firm. And so the chance of somebody building an AI agent or AI agents for a go-to-market focused exec search firm is just zero. Like, no one's going to build that unless we build it. And they aren't that hard to build right now. And so what we're doing is we're defining this product and then saying, where can we now build agents that help us do certain things a lot better than anyone else? Because there's actually quite a defendable competitive advantage we can gain against the others by figuring that out. And so I think there are interesting opportunities like this that people should be looking at.
A big part of this as well is this innovator's dilemma. Sam, you said something pretty interesting, smaller teams. And I'm curious if either of you have an opinion on like what is smaller teams. You said not Clary or SalesLoft because they have bigger teams. And you mentioned the number 100. There's probably a number in there. Maybe it's below Dunbar's number of 150, where it just feels like, okay, we're not risking or betting the company by doing this. We have to do this to survive. And then there's a lot bigger companies that are just still trying to flirt with it and figure out, what does this even mean? But it is an innovator's dilemma. And we'll look back at it in hindsight and be like, oh my goodness, why didn't all these companies had to go all in? They're going to die. They're literally going to die.
I don't know, AJ. I was talking to some of the people that I was having dinner with, some folks that are helping the Fortune 50 implement AI right now. And they said, listen, you look at these customer support focused AI companies, Sierra. Sierra has shot to 100 million in ARR very, very quickly. And the promise of Sierra is very compelling. And you have other versions, right? You have Finn from, I think, Intercom and a bunch of these others. They're like, we have struggled so hard to be able to get these things to work in simple use cases. One of their clients is a large telco. They're like, we have four basic questions that are the most common questions people ask when they call in, and we're just trying to get those to be handled by AI, and it's not working. Palantir failed on that project. They
Mm.
brought in somebody else to do it. And so then you look at a large company, and there is, I think, curiosity, and they are trying to invest in AI. But when they see this type of a situation, are they going to burn the boats? That's an aggressive move to make when it's just so far from where it
Well, they
needs
don't
to
the
be.
clarity on commercialization. It's a really good point that they're just going to struggle with figuring out what this needs to look like, and they need to have, especially with boards, they need to have clarity and predictability around their financial models. And if they don't have that, they're not going to be able to do it. They could do it on a small scale, like you're talking about, but at what point, like, what's the real bottleneck? Is it data, tech limitations? Probably the
Yeah.
data that they're seeing,
The data
or
is really bad.
change management is also
Data is
another.
a big problem, but the AI itself is a problem, right? Like as we said, the AI is just not there yet. It's really interesting, but it's not there yet.
Right.
For you, AJ, what does what would you need to see or feel for you to think that AGI is here?
Well, I mean, I think the similar to some of the things Sam would say, the difference between AGI and super intelligence. I'm not qualified to answer that question. I think we were talking a few episodes ago where there is some level of Terminator to it, where Skynet, it just turns on and it's here and we're done, and we wake up and the electricity's out and we don't know what's going on in the world, and we're in it. But I have less of an alarmist point of view, I'm sure, as you guys do, and the goalposts definitely are moving for some of these folks, and I'm not sure I have a great answer outside of what has already been said, which is this idea of like, once it's self-sufficient and it's continuing to learn and improve by itself, and we can show that model is happening, then I feel like it's there the
Maybe
way.
that's a technical definition of superintelligence, something that improves itself. Sure. But this AGI thing is what's more interesting to me. I think, Sam, what you were saying around, if we were to hire somebody that behaves like O3, let's say O3 is the best model today, that person behaves like O3. We fire that. I said a month to you, and you said I'd do it in 3 days, and then I
Well,
thought of that,
because you'd instantly realize that they're lying through their teeth.
and they're
That
not
like,
getting better.
yeah.
And Darwish makes this really interesting argument about how far we are from AGI. He thinks that we're many years away from AGI. And his argument is that you hire somebody right now, a human, and initially when they join your company, they have enthusiasm, they have talent, but they really aren't that impactful or helpful. And then they learn and they try things and they grow and they make mistakes and they keep adjusting. And all of this compounds. And I think about it at SDA. Armin joined our company 11 years ago as a very junior person. He's now a managing director. Over 11 years, a lot of compounding has happened. His impact is now more than just himself, it's across multiple people. And AI just has nowhere close to those tendencies. It stays forever as a new employee within the first 5 minutes of you hiring them. And I think till that dynamic doesn't change, it would be hard to feel like we have something
It's
really, really
consistent autonomous judgment at an expert level that, like, is, and that consistent word is important there, because you're right. We would all fire AI today in less than 3 days. Sam would
not
do it in
just
10 minutes. It would
judgment.
take me like 20 minutes probably, but Sam would do it in 10
No,
minutes.
I would do it in 20 minutes too. I'm just to the point. I think like we definitely are being sold a promise right now, but at the same time, you can't deny the fact that there is meaningful utility and that we all use it every
Of
day.
course.
And
Of
there are
course.
things, really important decisions where O3 actually helps, and the act of the reasoning helps present choices in a clearer way that removes emotion, that I found to be quite useful. So there's no denying that these tools are incredibly valuable and useful. I think we're going to be told that AGI is here very soon. Probably next year, Sam Altman will tell us that AGI is
Yes.
here, but it'll be based on some novel definition of AGI that was constructed to defend the incentives of OpenAI, which is fine.
Sam,
I don't
do
care.
you believe that, forget next year, do you think, forget even the amount of years, do you think that the the problem will get solved. Let's say within a decade. Within a
Yeah.
decade, we'll actually have AGI.
Yes, I do.
We are much closer today. ChatGPT 5 launches any minute now. I don't know if
Yes.
either of you have used it, but Sam Altman said, significant step towards artificial general intelligence, noting that it feels like interacting with a PhD level expert. So maybe tomorrow, maybe we have to re-record this tomorrow, and we're like, oh, never mind, it's here. Here we
Well, I
are.
think if you
Interacting with a PhD level expert isn't. I keep thinking about the agent that they have like book restaurant reservations and make travel
not that
plans.
good.
And my point is like, so for me, AGI is I would trust it to do that, knowing everything about me. And the answer is no way. Like I'm a long way from just giving an agent my credit card and saying, go run with it.
Here's some crazy stuff I just read on LinkedIn. One of the founders of Drift, I think his name is Elias, and he was on a podcast, I forget with whom, and he was basically saying he's building some AI customer success technology. And he's like, I don't know why people are being so thoughtful about the emails that AI writes. Just send the email. Why are you trying to like check everything and care about what it writes and what it sends? You should just like not care. And I think it's really interesting, like somebody building AI making that argument. I think it's an insane argument. I would short that company in a second, even though he's had a decent exit before. I would short it because that's not the problem. The problem is hallucinations. It could hallucinate some crazy stuff, and you're not going to take the risk of that hallucination. You're just not going to take that risk. And it's really hard to even figure out right now. People say we need somebody to do QA on the AI. Makes sense, right? We all believe that in the future AI will be really powerful, and we know that today it has hallucinations. And so to make it work, there's going to be a QA element. How do you do that QA? So let's say Ramp is making an agent for expense management. So Ramp reviews 100 expenses and approves them. How do I know which one to check? Do I have to QA 100? Right
No,
now, no
you
one.
would. I mean, I think. Well, first of all, these are answered questions in other fields. I think what you do is you
Yeah.
take you random sample batches to determine. I'm sure that's how. Uh, I'm sure that's how it's done in any
Audit. I
kind of
mean, you do
research.
financial audits, test penetration tests. There, it's
Yeah.
done in security. Exactly right, Sam.
Yes, but the hallucinations, yeah, you are basically still then stomaching a pretty significant risk. So, which tells you that in simple areas where you are willing to take that risk, you'll be able to use it. But in places where the stakes are high, you won't, because a sampled way of doing QA will not work if the stakes are high. And so, there's a lot that still has to be figured out. I think one of the interesting questions to think about, Sam, would be how does operating a business, especially commercializing a business, if we get this AGI in a few years, how does that look different to you?
We've talked about this a lot. I think the function that prevails, I actually do think is sales. I think the other functions are vastly different. I think finance.
Not that we all run go to market companies or anything.
Well, I got to that by just thinking about from first principles. If we can't really trust AI, the reason that community is so important right now is because we need to talk about it. That's why this podcast is interesting, because we have all of these things. We're all wrestling with them and struggling with them, and we talk it through. And the act of bouncing some of these ideas off of each other helps refine and crystallize them in a way that just getting a text output from ChatGPT does not. We get it, we like it, it's useful, but we don't trust it completely, and we don't solely rely on that. And I think that there's this idea that companies are just going to outsource the purchasing of software or the purchasing of new solutions to an agent is absurd, because you don't even the agent will rely on past experience and not necessarily understand all of the factors and the intricacies, and you're still going to want to cross check it, and that's where sales is going to come into play, because you're going to need somebody to talk to. I think what's emerging for all of us is that we want people to talk to. That's sort of the point of the podcast. That's why there's been an explosion of podcasts, because humans want to they want commentary on top of the distillation of these and the synthesis of these facts. So that means I think there will be salespeople. There might be fewer because they're more productive, but I definitely think finance teams will be smaller. I think marketing
Mhm.
teams will be smaller. I think, and one of the questions that Asad has raised in the past is, do you need some kind of like AI focused COO? And do we have people that have those skills to run an organization that is AI first? And I think yes, you do, and no, we don't. I think the other thing
Mm.
that's going to happen though is because the cost of so many of these tasks is going to continue to go down, even if we don't have AGI, I think there's going to be more and more and more businesses. I think more the cost of doing your own thing, the relative risk factors of doing your own thing
Mm.
versus working for a small to medium sized business is, it's not that there's no risk, it's that the risk trade-off is going to change a little bit. It's just going to be way easier to be an influencer, to be a creator, to run a two-person services firm that relies on technology to deliver software-like margins on top of those services. So I
Sam, you
think that
said
there's,
something
go ahead.
really interesting. You said on the COO point, yes, we do, and no, we don't, right? We do need these COOs that can orchestrate AI across our organizations, but we don't have enough of them right now. Does that create in your mind a huge opportunity for people at the director and VP level that basically are younger, early in their career, they want to jump up, they want to make a move, and they go and they skill themselves up to be that person? It's a way to go from director to COO in warp speed compared to, let's say, where we were just a few years ago.
100%. What do you think, AJ? I see you're nodding.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. I think that, I mean, speed is the real key piece to there. Like that's, I just don't think we have context or frame of mind of just how fast things can and will move in this world. And so like one day, we have a COO and the next day he's an AI first CEO or she's an AI first CEO. Like that's what's just going to happen. It's just going to flip like that so quickly, and we're either on the bus or we're not. So
AJ, from a levels of organization perspective, so we've got executives in a business, you've got middle management, you've got frontline individual contributors. If orchestration is going to be this thing that we need from people, people that can orchestrate technology, do you think this is going to create more opportunity for that middle management? Because those are also part of the order. Like those will be people that are going to be, let's say, within finance doing a specific part of the finance function. And so they'll own the agents that are helping with that thing. And the reason I'm asking this is that middle management got destroyed during the downturn, right? Everybody was firing middle managers, everybody was hating them. We have too many managers, all this stuff. Do you think now there's going to be more demand, more need for these people, or no?
I am looking at my own organization, and so I can only talk with my own perspective and what I have seen, and our customers, what our customers are doing. And I have seen that like challenges in the middle management layer exist across all companies. And one of the things that it's caused, that I'm again just speaking for QuotaPath, is this two class system with a management team on one side and ICs on the other side. And it's strange to me because the management team is doing much more in the weeds work, IC work, than I've ever seen previously, but that's not creating a bridge between ICs and the management team. And in fact, it's creating a wedge between the two. And it's something that we're talking about more transparently in our own organization. And I'd be curious to hear if either of you see this, where um, I've heard from some of the ICs on our team, like it just feels like it's a management team versus us culture
Interesting.
that's starting to change. And I think that that's because the middle management, we have directors at QuotaPath, but it still feels like we haven't done a good job of either empowering them. They still feel like they need to be told what to do, and that's the most frustrating part of this, is that the training and enablement of that middle management layer has kind of disappeared, because when we got rid of all of the middle managers, we probably got rid of our L&D programs. We probably got rid of some of the things that we're like, oh, we'll send them to Pavilion and they'll go to CRO school. But like that piece of it kind of got eroded across a lot of our organizations, and now we have we're at this path, we're at this crossroads. Do we go rebuild that muscle and get middle managers to the level that they need to be to see success by either promoting or adding headcount? Or do we take a completely different path and say, like, you know what, we're gonna continue to stay the size we are, and we're gonna double down, and we know AI isn't where it needs to be, but we're going to invest in some of those people to move them up to what you're talking about, where directing, they're directing these agents, these headcount people, these SDRs or whatever it might be, to actually show that there's real gains that way. Those are the two paths that I see
That's
forward.
interesting.
I
One,
think I think that there's AJ is touching on something that is it's almost existential,
It is
right?
existential.
And again, it's great to be us. It's great to be the CEO. It's great to be a founder CEO. Someone that still controls the business. But the problem is a layer. What we need is people that like building. They like
mhm.
getting actual things done. We
Yes.
actually need them to orient less on team size. We need to
Yep.
create status around overall
And they need to be
productivity levels.
experts. They need to be like senior level experts in terms of like they're still learning and growing and digging in. Sorry, Sam, to cut you off, but like 100%, we need builders.
Yeah. And
Get
the
your hands
problem
dirty.
is there's a group of middle managers that that's not what they want to do. What they
What
want
are
to
you
do
doing?
is translate. They want to translate, organizational requirements, product requirements, whatever you want to say. They want to translate the strategy from the ELT down to the people that they manage, but they don't want to do the work. And those people are, you can sense almost a desperation of franticness from some of those folks these days because they're not sure how to add value, and sometimes they think they're adding value in ways by inserting themselves into different processes, and they're not.
Hmm.
And I think that it's going to be a problem because status used to come from the size of your team
Yeah.
and obviously your title, of course, and that still matters, and obviously the amount of money you make. But there's a fundamental type of work that is going to feel a lot like IC work. I mean, we do IC work. The three of us do
I
IC
that's
work.
that's the thing. That's what I was saying is the management team is doing IC work, but they're I guess there's more less about the middle management piece to it and more about that there's a lot of people in our organization that have probably gotten comfortable in different ways over the last few years. And this inflection point that we're all at is going to make them uncomfortable.
Oh,
And the
very.
three of us, we live in uncomfortable. That's how we learn and grow. We literally every day is kind of a new day for us,
I
but
like
that is
making
not true for
people
people.
uncomfortable when I'm with you guys on an offsite and just touching your face.
I put on my meta glasses
Yeah,
and just
there
say
we go.
like
Do
recording this.
you?
No, you're right though, AJ. Putting jokes aside, I really do think that this is a very real problem because you're trying to think about how do I fit these people into the organization of the future, and the answer is like it's probably going to be these more junior people that evolve into more senior roles with the understanding that their job they're never going to get away from building. You got to like building stuff. You got to like tinkering. You got to like putting workflows together in make.com or Zapier or something like that. Like it doesn't matter if you're an engineer, but you are going to have you're going to be reviewing outputs from 5 different agents. That's what, Brandon Smith, right? Like that's what he does. He
Yeah.
reviews outputs from SDR agents. That's like managing a team of SDRs, but he is doing IC level work, reviewing those emails, reviewing the responses, probably using some kind of routing system to flow them to the right place, but he's overseeing that engine all the time. There's not going to
Uh,
be a point at which somebody else oversees that engine and there's like 2 more people between him and the engine.
Yeah.
They're like the next level up is the CEO.
he's by the way, you mentioned Zapier, really interesting situation. Zapier has like a $400,000 a year enterprise solution where they go and teach you AI. They literally go into your organization and do like AI hackathons. They like will build hackathons. So I think
Mhm.
it's a really interesting thing. Uh,
Everyone's doing this now.
Everyone's doing
AI is.
N8N is actually so Brandon and I were talking. He's like, you had so many people reached out to him, by the way, after the last episode or when I was talking about AI SDRs. And he's like, AJ, do you want to like walk through what I like some of the things I'm actually working on? Because sometimes I'm like saying this is what he does, and I'm like, oh, he's probably
That's
sitting there
what he
rolling his
does.
eyes. So tomorrow we're actually walking through the N8N workflows and how he thinks about data and pulling context forward and
Well,
the
I have a
Slack bot that
question
we
on
have.
this. Lemkin made a really interesting post. He's obviously been very AI forward in how he runs SaaStr. And so he's now a very lean team. He's run AI SDR. His content's been managed by AI, just AI everywhere. And he made a post. He's like, it is lonelier. It is a lonelier journey now. It's quieter, it's lonelier. Chaos is this interesting thing where in there's bad chaos, but we do like some level of like stuff's happening, things going on, etc. That's engaging and activating as well. And he's like, that's I miss that a little bit. Now, the question I have is, you don't have these like quieter organizations, slightly lonely in some cases. Um, and then you don't have these people that are rising up. I do agree with the trend that I think there's a huge opportunity for people that are very junior today to really accelerate up the career ladder at a pace that feels illogical right now when we try to look back, but is going to, that's the opportunity today. Because if you are a COO, CMO, CRO that is just not willing to play with these things to develop the context and skills yourself, then you're not relevant anymore. And it creates an opportunity for somebody who has the relevant
I
skills.
disagree with you, Asid. I don't think it will be quieter. I actually think it will. I think my take is, and it's the same reason Sam said when the people that are listening to this podcast because of community. I think it actually the team that you do have, it gets noisier, it gets louder. Here's a good example. I'll have an all hands next week, and one of the things we're going to talk about is just making sure your video is on in Zoom. I know this is a ridiculous conversation. It feels like we're back in 2020 having the same conversation. But at this point, at the inflection point of our business, that is just one very
It's a
prescriptive.
ridiculous thing. Anyone keeping their video off on calls, I think, should get fired.
Okay, well, there we go. Thank you, Austin. That's a clip we're going to just take right and put on.
It's
That's a
just
good clip. That's a
crazy.
good
Like,
clip.
It's a great clip, but it's the point. The point being is that
Well, unless
you
you say
say
one
that,
thing.
but most companies don't operate that way, even if they're
Really?
remote. Yeah. And and what I'm saying is that this is a moment in time. This is a catalyst that we can all look at our own organizations and review them and say, like, what do we want to operate? How do we want our operating system to change going forward? So you as a founder, you as a CEO, you as an operator, you as an executive need to sit down and intentionally think about your operating system going forward. And what have you done that has just become this like momentum thing over the last 3 years that going forward you're not going to stand for? And you don't have to use AGI
I get that.
necessarily.
The point I was going to make was slightly different, which was that if we have people that are rising up the career ladder and what they're really doing is managing a lot of technology and less human management, they've got less humans on the team. At a certain point, as an executive, you have people you need to manage. You have culture you need to develop. You need to know how to manage people, talk to them, keep them accountable. Are we breeding a generation of executives that are good at using agents but will not know how to have a difficult conversation with someone or how to drive culture in an organization? Like, they won't have those skills. What do you think, Sam?
Yeah, I think that ship has sailed. I think if you look at the young generation today, they spend disproportionate amounts of. I mean, we all do. It's not even the young people. Everybody's spending time on their screen. Their young people tend to be less physically social. They're having sex later. They're not drinking. A lot of this is the fact that they're spending. They're more comfortable in kind of isolated digital experiences. Even if they're interacting with other people online, they're less comfortable interacting with with people in the real world, and that's a primary reason to send kids to school and to send them to
Camp.
college is for socialization. And I'm also worried about the trend against college for that reason, that we're removing the places where you go to learn how to interact with other people. And I think
Yeah.
part of the school shooting phenomenon and part of what we see happening when it comes to these kinds of terror attacks is isolation leading to radicalization, where you're
Yes.
just not used to talking things out. You're used to the incendiary back and forth of Twitter or of some kind of social media platform, and there's less nuance. So yeah, I do think that we are in fact currently, now there's this counter movement, and that's one of the things we're going to be talking about, right? Which is this concept of this grind score that Jared Sleeper developed, around sort of like people working 9 hours, 9 to 9, 6 days a week, in office. There's a different article, I think, in the Washington Post or Wall Street Journal today, talking about how sort of stealing from the China work culture that had become predominant in communist China. And I think there's this movement towards in-person and experiences and in-person interaction, which is a
Which is
counter
also
to it.
kind of funny because I won't say it's true for every company, but American culture used to be like this too. Like my
Like
first
extremely
job was 8
hardworking.
a.m. in seat. I couldn't leave until 6 p.m. on the dot. And then I had to prospect for 2.5 hours. Like we all earned our stripes in a really tough environment. And that's why we're here and who we are
But
today.
America hasn't had a 6-day work week in a very, very long time.
No, I didn't even mean 60. I mean, maybe 50 to
But
60
that's it,
hour work
AJ.
week.
Like, let's say you work 12 hours a day, 5 days a week. If somebody adds a 6th day over a month, they have how many more hours over you?
But I wake up at like 5 a.m. and get to work at 7, which is like 5 hours before you crack and
Yeah,
wake
I'm
up.
not living
So
five that five with anyone. I I remember growing up in Pakistan, we had a 6-day work week as well, and then it shifted, and people became a lot happier. Family life became better. You got to see your dad. Like, there was a time when I would see my dad on Sunday, and he'd just be like burnt out on a couch because he'd worked so much, and
but this grind score is interesting in the sense that it also, okay, so working is one thing, but if you're passionate or you're engaged or you want to do the work, that's a totally different thing. So I actually,
let's just define the grind score for people.
yes.
The grind score is basically this analysis that Jared Sleeper from Avenir did, where he looked at companies on Glassdoor, and he basically took the percent of employees that were saying that were giving this organization a positive business outlook. This company has a bright future ahead. We believe in its future potential, divided by work-life balance based on Glassdoor's data, and basically saying that companies that have a high a good score on business outlook but score low on work-life balance, that's a positive indication for that business. And then they went and they looked at all these organizations, and turned out a lot of the companies we consider are doing really well, including Owner and Rippling and Figma and Ramp. They were in the top 15 organizations on this list. And so Jared is actually doing a Q&A for the Top Line newsletter next week.
Oh, that's
Because
great.
Yeah, I reached out to him. I thought this was really interesting. We're going to
Nice
talk about
get,
it.
Asit. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
I hope everybody's opening that newsletter. Just open it a couple
just
times,
open it.
read
Open it
it.
twice at least, just for
Yeah,
me.
just open
Share
it.
it. You need to share it with one
Get
friend.
mad about it.
If everyone
Get
shares it with
mad.
one friend and then they share it with two
Assume that
friends,
everything that the person writing the essay thinks is a direct representation of what I personally think, and use it as an opportunity to attack me personally.
Sam may or may not have had some people from RevOps communities reach out to him and be frustrated
Most
with him.
sensitive part of the ecosystem.
I got another. I got another. Jenna Gartua had to pull me aside at the CEO, the Pavilion CEO.
I vaguely heard that. I was sitting on the other
Yeah,
side of the table and I vaguely
a
heard that
lot of people.
conversation.
Sort of a way of saying like a lot of people are mad at you. A lot of people, are angry about that. You should know. And I was like, I don't know what to say about it,
What
but
are
I
we
wish
gonna
them the
say?
best.
Yeah.
Everybody's very
Good luck
sensitive.
with that.
Anyway,
So we've spoken about AGI, we've spoken about AI, and obviously one of the implications is if we get there, and we all kind of believe that at some point we'll get there. We're believers, we just are also realistic about where we are today. We believe we'll get there. When we get there, every company will need less people, and there might be more companies, and so the really good professionals will have tons of opportunity, but broadly speaking, labor loses leverage in that equation. And so if labor is losing leverage, have we totally moved away from a world in which a few years ago, work-life balance was one of the things everybody cared about? Companies were advertising, we provide great work-life balance, to a point where what we are celebrating, this went viral, and viral in a good way. Like, there was a lot of positive engagement on this research that he did. Have we moved away completely from that world to one where hard work is what it's all going to be about? AJ.
Where hard labor loses leverage. I love that phrase, by the way. Really, really great. A plus work from you, Asid. Where hard work. Repeat that last sentence again, because I think it's really
he's saying,
important.
are employees going to go back and have the kind of leverage they had against employers in 2021 when we all needed to hire SDRs and sales teams, and an SDR went from making 50K base to 75K base, when
Yeah.
right out of school you would have over 100 OTE for setting some meetings.
Right. So what would need to change in today's current environment for that to be true? Well, first off, we'd have to go back to zero interest rates where cash would be pretty open and free, where you could literally not really worry about the salaries that you're paying for. So there's only a handful of companies right now in the world that can pay for that level of talent, where those employers, those specialized employers, AI researchers have that leverage. But if you're an average seller, an enterprise seller, or even a computer engineer, you don't have the leverage that you had in 2021. And I mean, the world changes over and over again. Do either
Well,
of
do you think
you
it's
think in
coming
the next
back?
12 months?
The question is, do you think it's coming back?
I mean, of course it's going back ever. Like, but is it going
I
back in the
think
next
you're
12
wrong.
months? Like, work
I'll argue
backwards.
that I think
I
we're
don't know about
done.
of course. Why
Of
do you
course
say
it's
of
going
course?
back.
No.
Because the history of the world always repeats
I
itself.
think you're completely wrong on that. I think things also change fundamentally and stay changed, right? Like people used to die when they were 30 years old, and now on average, they don't die when they're 30 years old. They would live in like one constrained area of geography, the part that you could walk to or the part you could get to on a horse. And now we fly across the globe. So things change. I think one of the things that's
Well, it
changed.
just shifts. Hold on, wait, Austin. It just shifts. Like the demand. It's a supply demand thing. It's an
Yes, so I
econ
think
thing.
the demand for the average employee is going down. The demand for an absolute gangster is increasing, but the demand for the average person, I see that as a declining curve over the long term. And I think what it'll correlate to, or maybe what the causation is going to be, is AI. Like as AI gets better and better and more capable, the average employee is going to have a harder time finding a job, and the very best sales leader, the very best marketing leader, the very best product person will have a great time. But if the average person has less opportunity, then labor as a group has less leverage. And labor as a group having less leverage means that no one's going to listen to their requests, right? What they're fighting for is employment and sustenance. They don't have the position to be able to fight for work life balance and DEI and all the things that they had the extreme leverage for in 2021.
So,
And so
what new skills or traits then would you define that an employee needs to learn to become a
I
gangster? I
think it's the
guess.
group. I think the group loses it. I don't think it's about any one individual. Sure, like if you're really good, you can. If you're a great salesperson, no one cares when you're working, how you're working. You're just hitting your numbers. No one cares, right? Like that's true, and that'll always be true. I think Steve Jobs used to be allowed to work at night when he worked at Atari. I think because he was great, and they were like, "Yeah, do it whenever you
He
want." Like
didn't
so,
shower.
he also smelled a lot. And
Yeah,
so
he
they're
did
like,
not shower.
this is in everyone's best interest. But I think the group needs leverage for that to happen, because then the group organizes, and then the group has narratives, and those narratives have engagement, and the engagement drives movement, right? I think that all is shifting quite fundamentally away from the average employee. And so I think hard work, long hours, things that the employer wants, right? Employers always want people to work 12 hours a day, 6 days. Like that's what the employer always wants. I think it's moving into a world where the employer will have a lot more leverage than labor does.
AI is obviously the great equalizer in this whole thing, because it would be easy to say like, oh, in 2008 you had the financial crisis, so of course you had to work long hours because no one was hiring new grads at that time. You had to have your work ethic, but work ethic is no longer the proving ground to like actually for a long sustained career. So that point
Of
makes
course it is.
sense.
Of course,
But
work ethic is a big part of it. Like, do you want to hire people that don't have good work ethic? Like, I don't believe in that statement. Some people say things like, "I just care about results. I don't care about inputs." I care about the input, because how do I increase your output if I don't know your input? Like, if I know that you work this
I
much
mean,
and this,
I think all of these management tropes are going to be called into question because you're right, Asad. There's a lot of management tropes exactly like that. I don't need to micromanage. I just want the outputs.
yeah,
All I care about is what comes out of it. You know, if you have to look over somebody's shoulder, then you're
yeah,
doing it
yeah,
wrong. Who
yeah, yeah.
cares? You shouldn't talk about work ethic. You shouldn't
All
talk
of
about
it.
hours. People should be allowed to live their lives. The only thing that matters is like what comes out of it. And I think it's not that I completely disagree with any of that stuff. I just think that in the absence of clear, sometimes in the absence of clear outputs, I mean, it works really well for salespeople, and it doesn't work as well for pretty much every other job. And I will say, I also think that the phrase work-life balance never made any real sense to me, to be completely honest. Like, I just don't partition things that well. I bring my whole self to like every
compartmentalize.
interaction.
Yeah.
So even when I'm quote unquote on vacation, I think people need to relax. I think people need wellness. I think people need mental health. I think the definition of work will evolve as it becomes easier and easier to carve out a little niche, sort of to the point of Chris Anderson's Thousand True Fans or Kevin Kelly, whoever it was that wrote that.
I think I agree with this as well. It'll be interesting to see how this plays out. Okay.
Well, wait, hold on, Austin, just real quick, because I want to like just make sure I make my statement clear here. I definitely agree with the fundamental point that it's changed. I can't say it's changed forever, but it feels like that's the case. But I want to go back to the thing that I said earlier in the conversation, which was we all have a point. We know this is here. We all have a point to get really, really clear with our employees that this is what the expectation is going forward. And we can be okay with that because we do have all of the leverage in this conversation. We can find someone that is probably better in any skill set outside of AI researcher. You can go find someone. Everyone is replaceable in this instance, and we have to be okay saying that and stating that out loud. But then on the other side of it, really being clear about what we're expecting and demanding so that people can either opt in or opt out of the situation. Like that's the important part there.
I think that's true. And I think a lot of companies are going to go through exactly that process over the next 6 to 12 months of opting in and opting out.
Moving on to Clay. So some news in the go-to-market tech space. We mentioned there's acquisition, a merger between SalesLoft and Clary, a merger of equals, as they would like
Are
to
we
say.
teasing that? Are we going to get to that at all today?
Yeah, we're there now. So Clay has raised 100 million at a 3.1 billion dollar valuation. That's their Series C. It was led by Capital G, which is just a great name for a venture firm, Google's venture arm. They're probably on track to do about 100 million, from what I can tell, based on some of the revenue that was reported a little while ago. So you can do some math and figure out a multiple over there. Then there's this merger between Clary and SalesLoft, and then you've also had ZoomInfo announce their earnings, and ZoomInfo's had a tough time. They basically were down. The stock was down 50% last year, 22% this year. If they hit their very best projections for this year, they'll only grow 2-3%. The big problems in that business seem to be churn and down market. Down market isn't performing, so they're trying to go up market. They are basically valued at about 2 times revenue at this point. So go to market tech, a lot of things are happening. You've got Clay raising the type of round that makes you feel like their investors believe there's a 10, 20, $30 billion outcome here, right? And then you look at all these other companies other than Salesforce and HubSpot, who's ever gotten there. What do you make of this all the movement in our go-to-market tech landscape, Sam?
I think the sales law. Well, Asad, you predicted consolidation,
Yes.
and I think more consolidation will happen. And I think if I'm a shareholder of Clary and SalesLoft, and I mean, it's classic private equity. I can probably get meaningful EBITDA expansion by removing duplicative functions, and so you merge, and now you've got more capabilities, more customers, and probably significantly higher profitability would be my guess, or at least double, right? One would presume.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to continue to happen. I think Clay's really interesting because I think you're right, Asid. It's very astute to compare it to ZoomInfo and to say, okay, ZoomInfo's revenue is going down. Clay is actually a very hard product to use.
Right.
It seems to run counter to most of the other AI trends, right? Which is ease of use, right?
Yes, yes, yes,
Clay's
yes.
perspective is like you need to hire a GTM engineer and pay that, or an agency that they're partners with, and you need to pay that person $200,000 a year, or the agency $250,000 in order to use Clay. Now, I love the vision of Clay, and I love the idea that like it's this massive horizontal tool that you can do a million different things with, provided you have the data. But I would not invest at the current valuation.
Yeah, that was going to be my question. Would you dump money at this value? Would you have been in this round? Sam, you wouldn't.
I wouldn't, but I'm not a venture capitalist. I like Clay. I like Clay a lot. And we had Kareem on, and, you know, good for them. I mean, I'm excited for them. I want them to succeed. I don't know how you square exactly the circle that Asad is articulating, which is go to market tech actually doesn't appear to be that big.
And especially if you're not selling seats for every salesperson, right? Like, so if Salesforce sells a seat for every salesperson in your company, and then every marketing person and CS person, support person, and they do it across the entire economy, across the entire globe, and they're the one thing everybody feels they have to buy in go to market. Sure, they're where they are, but this Clay doesn't even sell in that way, and so it makes me really question. So, this orchestration tool that they've built, tech companies have to spend so much money and energy to make it work. How is an AJ, you talk about how some of your customers outside of tech, how hard it is to work with them, their ops teams. how are they going to ever use Clay? And that's where they have to go. They need to unlock that part of their TAM for them to become $30 billion, right? I
Well,
don't know.
first off, the consolidation. I know you asked Sam about the consolidation. I love this. I absolutely love this. This is like deals are getting done and things are happening. And honestly, the three of our companies are kind of sitting here, and it makes us more powerful. I mean, companies will need to have responses. You'll think about Gong and what are they going to respond to? It's just going to be really interesting to see some of these things play out. Zoom Info's CEO will be at GTM in uh, DC next month.
Yes, yes, yes,
That's
yes.
correct. So I will find out more then, maybe. But at the same time, I am really, really excited to see how some of these what comes out of this orchestration. And honestly, if you're a customer of one of these five, I thought the CEO Andy's of Clary message was kind of funny. He said that 5,000 customers of Clary and SalesLoft combined are doing $10 trillion
Hmm.
of revenue and whatever. It's these all these like magical random numbers.
All the candidates we've ever placed together, they have taken enough breaths to have filled an entire city worth of air. It's like, okay,
What are you
sure.
talking about?
What
Yeah,
does that mean? Like, why?
yeah. It's but these roll up we call the consolidation. We've been saying it for a year and a half. We've also know that GTM TAM is maybe it's growing, but there's just so much noise. And I look at HubSpot. HubSpot has 8,000 solution partners. Those are solution implementers that they handle manufacturers, roofing companies. We've had to rely on these and get really as a channel involved in understanding it. And it's very, very difficult. These ops people do not grow on trees. They're not a dime a dozen and they do not exist horizontally. So for Clay to succeed, they have to go horizontally. And I agree
How
with
much
you.
of Clay's,
I'm
let's
not,
say they are doing 100 million, how much of that do you think is
they're not
just,
doing 100 million, by
let's
the
say they're
way.
on track to do 100 this year? They must be. Like, if they
Okay.
did 40, 50 last year, they would be on track for 100 this year. Um, how much of that is just prospect for all the things they
They
can
did
do?
20 last year, by the way, for the record. They did 20. Go ahead.
Okay, so
Go
they're
ahead.
flexing
Is
this
that
year.
gap revenue or their exit ARR?
I mean, yeah. Let me ask ChatGPT 5. It has a PhD, so I should be able to find out.
Do you think what percent of their revenue is from just a pure prospecting use case?
Hmm.
That's a really great question. Like the data, basically data. They're competitive with Zoom Info and with Apollo. Like that's what you're
I think
asking.
that's their competitive landscape. It's like, I think 80% of their revenue comes from prospecting, basically.
Yeah.
And if that's your landscape, then you are basically the sales loft, outreach, Zoom Info, Apollo. Like, that's kind of the
I can take the other side of that though. I don't think it's prospecting. I think that's a very myopic way to look at what they do. I think what it is develop. Now, this still might not be a very big enough market, but we use Clay. Here's the problem, right? So we use Clay because when you sign up for Pavilion, LinkedIn doesn't give you an easy API so that you can
yeah.
just pull in like job history automatically, and in a third party system like our member hub can have like a full picture of who that person is. So, but we do have their email address and we have enough information to build a Clay waterfall and like enrich our members. So we use Clay for data enrichment, not necessarily for prospecting, but for some kind of communication protocol where we don't have the full information provided by the customer, by the person. So we want to enrich that information so that we can present their information back to the sponsor, present that information to other people. The problem is, so by the way, that's not necessarily a prospecting use case. I think the broader would just be a data enrichment use case. We want to know more about our customers, about our TAM. We want to know more about them, and Clay helps us know more about these people individually. The problem is that it's wrong all the time.
Here it is.
So,
I'm sharing my screen. Here's the Clay use case for Pavilion. Me right here. Boom. In your face. Yeah, I knew you guys were gonna love that. I
did you?
don't know if we go.
Are you going to add Pavilion member to your LinkedIn profile?
I think it's there already there, Sam. I'm pretty confident it's there.
But my point is like the problem with Clay is that the data is wrong.
Well, tell me more about that. Where are you catching that? Like, is that because you said it uses
So we have a
LinkedIn's
sponsor
API?
for a dinner, right? QuotaPath wants to sell to heads of RevOps if they're still willing to be members of Pavilion after Asid commissioned that piece from James McKay. So let's say QuotaPath wants to sponsor a dinner, and we say it's only going to be heads of RevOps, and so we put together. We enrich, the information about members, and we say, okay, here's a bunch of heads of RevOps we're going to invite, and so we invite those people, and AJ shows up to host the dinner thinking he's going to develop personal relationships with all these heads of RevOps, and half the room is unemployed, or it's not to that extent, but that's the use case. Like, hey, this is who Asid Zaman is. Turns out that's not who he is.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's Clay's problem. That's not even though that's a different data problem. It just ultimately is going to go back to Clay.
But
Of
that's
course.
the challenge. Usually there's a dependency discount on valuations, right? Like by the time you go public, if you look at, let's say, Klaviyo gets a discount because it's so dependent on Shopify. You have companies that were built on top of Salesforce's ecosystem that get a discount in the market because of that. So that's like another challenge that one has to
Who's the last
resolve.
company to go public that's dependent on the Salesforce ecosystem, though?
Oh, it's been a while since the Salesforce one. Klaviyo was the last like major dependency, I think, because
Yeah.
theirs was Shopify, and they've had to deal with that dependency.
I mean,
I think
I'm not investing in this round, but I do think what you're just saying is really true, Asid, in the sense that this would be. I mean, maybe they're just going for it. They're going to go for going public. I don't know. Like,
no.
really, $3 billion valuation. What's next?
Whether they go public or not go public, the point is, like, at some point valuation has to meet reality. And is there a real, $10 billion opportunity? Because if you're investing at $3 billion, it means that you think there's a $10 billion opportunity, and a $10 billion opportunity, like a real $10 billion opportunity, absent hype. Because you might invest at $3 billion thinking, well, I'm just going to wait 6 months. They're going to raise another 100 million. Varun and Kareem are going to pay themselves another 50 million in secondary, and I'll sell then. And that might be a good use case. But if you're saying, no, at some point it actually has to equal, like it has to be 6 to 8 times revenue.
Yeah.
So they have to do $1 billion in revenue for me to believe that they're going to be a $10 billion company. It's like, I don't know, maybe.
That's tricky.
What a great deal, though. 100 million, 3% of the company. What a
You
great
know, if
deal
they
for
work
Green.
really, really hard and they give it their best effort, maybe they'll be able to get to Don's valuation in a year or two at 7 billion. That's like twice of where they're at. Wishing them the very best. I think those are two people that obviously have the capacity to figure this out, but they're solving problems that haven't been solved by many in this market before.
Central point here is that they are furthering the ecosystem and they're doing things that others are not. And so we're all supporters, but apparently not investors.
Good luck to them. I'm curious to see how it plays out. Okay,
Good
this has
luck.
been this has been a good conversation, guys. We have a listener question as the
Oh my
actual
God. Here
question
we
for
go.
this episode. Okay, so we got this question. I am 39 years old. My wife is 36. We live in Brooklyn. We have a 2-year-old. We both work in tech sales. She's at Fang. I am the CRO of a VC-backed company that's remote. I travel often for customer meetings and board meetings, etc. But we're now considering moving to Philadelphia and living with horrible internet for the rest of our lives. A conversation that's potentially been accelerated by an off-market opportunity to buy a large home in a great school district, a major lifestyle upgrade close to my wife's family, and we already have a strong friends group in the area. Here's what I'm wrestling with. I know AJ moved to Philly, and he had big exit as a founder and started another company. But for what it's worth, we're in a strong financial position. We do well. We make a lot of money. Still, my role is volatile by nature, and I'm trying to assess whether being based in Philly would limit my future opportunities and options as a go-to-market exec, especially if I need to find my next role quickly. Would love your perspective as a Philly native and somebody who's wrestled with horrible internet for the last few years and still made some money. AJ, what is your opinion on this?
I mean, I'm figuring it out. I'm getting there. I'm adulting here in Philadelphia. I'm going to answer this more broadly because it's less about Philadelphia, because I know not all of you out there are like, I'm going to move to Philadelphia. But if you're going to move to like Raleigh or Nashville or Denver, like all the like hot cities, or Montana or whatever, I think the thing that is underestimated, underrated, is access to other cities through your airport. And let me just the thing that you're like, Austin, where are you going with this? Well,
Heavy disagree.
Graham lives in Portland, Maine, and he has to always have a layover wherever he goes, and without fail, he always gets stuck somewhere, usually in Philadelphia, actually. So that's like one thing that I would actually be thinking about that there is I think it's just underrated in terms of accessibility to other cities. The other thing is, yeah, this is a really good question. For me personally, I moved back here from Austin, Texas, back to Philadelphia. My wife really wanted to move back. We looked at the area, found great schools, we're close to family, and Philly's a city. It's a true city.
But
So it
would you,
has,
for the sake of his career, do you think at 39, she's 36, do you think it's a good move or bad move?
I think it's a great move.
Sam.
I think AJ, we sent this question around over email, and AJ has like a very compelling written response. And I think that spoken response that he just gave was really low quality. So I feel like he didn't present the best side of AJ because he made
Okay,
this
let me
great point
actually
about.
read out what I said. How about that? Why don't we just do this?
I don't
I
know.
said,
Because the
uh,
commutable point was the right point. So make that point.
I live in Bryn Mawr, and I ended up, make that point. Ended up buying my home before my first exit. I love my house. And while it's been tempting to upgrade over the years, I feel like I have such a great location, family close by, accessible to New York or DC, and have made great friends over the past few years. We moved in 2017 back from Austin. Also, for what it's worth, my brother is a chief product officer at a fast growing startup that has similar volatility to you, and his wife works at design at Netflix. And they moved from Brooklyn to Doylestown when they had their first child. Sam's right that physical proximity still carries weight, especially for later stage companies that want leadership in the room 2 to 3 days a week. That said, commutable remote has become its own tier, and Philly sits in the sweet spot, 75 to 90 minutes on Amtrak to Penn Station, lower cost of living, and a growing tech corridor on its own. It's still way smaller than most other markets. I've been to New York 4 times in the last 4 weeks, by the way, all on the
That's
train.
just not enough. So I'll take the other side of this. I think it would be a horrible decision for you to move to Philly. I think you're young. Your family is young. You need to care about jobs, your career, and there's very limited job security in the FANGs as well as in a VC-backed
That
startup.
is not true. That is
Of
false.
course, there is. Like, how many thousands of people have been fired in sales and
It's
go
like
to market
smaller than like
within
2 to
large.
3% of those, and those are
Dude,
underperformers.
like 9,000 people just got fired from Microsoft, and most of them were go-to-market people. Like
And
go-to-market
what
getting
percentage
hit
of it
hard.
was? It was less than 5%.
But it was 9,000 people. You could be one of the 9,000, and they've done 9,000 every 6 months for the last 2 years. And so they'll do a bunch more moving forward. I would just say that go to market is the type of career where you move around. You do move around. Whether you're at a big company or small company, maybe the big company people move a little bit less, but you move around. And the world has changed from one where there were lots of remote opportunities and you could live on a farm and still be in a high-tech company to one where you have to be in an ecosystem. You have to be close enough to the ecosystem to be able to go in 3 days a week, 4 days a week. None of our clients, none of the CRO roles that we are hiring for have a preference for people in obscure places. Most of the ones we're
They're
hiring for
Philly
want people.
obscure. My
Philly is
goodness.
mad obscure, dude.
So it's
Most
less obscure than Toronto.
Yeah, I would not move to Toronto either. That would be a horrible decision for somebody's
So what
career.
cities are we talking about? New
New
York,
York,
San
San Francisco,
Francisco,
Boston, the dudes in Brooklyn, stay in Brooklyn. Like, do not
Boston.
move right now. And if you're moving, move to California or move to Boston.
Come to Philly. It's great. I'll show you a great time.
Move where there will be jobs because people want you in the office in your role.
I think that's it. That's the answer.
Sam, aren't you going to you got to pick a side here.
Well, you missed the part where my internet cut out. I think commutable remote you just have to understand it is a trade-off. It is a trade-off. My point is, for those out there, you can move to a commutable, a remote commutable city, but just do understand there is a sacrifice that you're making. And I'm making that same sacrifice by being in Barcelona, by the way. So sometimes you make sacrifices. Sometimes your priorities change in life. That's okay. God bless you. God bless you. If you're out there in RevOps, I love you. I didn't write that. I didn't write that nasty thing. Asid wrote it. Actually, James McKay wrote it.
You guys
But
need to
Asid
be less
approved it.
sensitive.
All right. Talk to you later, everybody. Thanks for listening.
Bye, everyone.